It happened on a Saturday evening when the air outside felt heavy and quiet, but inside our living room, the tension was louder than anything. My wife had just returned from coffee with her ex-boyfriend. I hadn't said much when she walked in, but I could feel my chest tightening. Something about the way she was smiling, carefree, as if nothing in the world mattered, made me uneasy. I finally asked her, trying to sound calm, "Do you really have to keep meeting him?" She looked at me with a playful grin, the kind of smile that once melted me, but now felt like a knife. Then she laughed, a short, cruel laugh that cut straight into my chest. "It's funny," she said, her voice dripping with mockery. "You get jealous every time I see him. Maybe it means you're not enough." For a moment, I couldn't even breathe. The words hung in the air like poison, and I felt my throat closing. I wanted to argue, to scream, to demand respect, but her laughter had already stripped me of dignity. She leaned back against the couch, scrolling through her phone, still smirking at my silence. I turned away, my fists clenched, and walked into the bedroom, replaying her words over and over. "Maybe you're not enough." That night, I lay in bed beside her, but sleep never came. My mind kept drifting to memories of our early days, how she once admired my strength, how she told me I was the only man who made her feel safe. Now, she was comparing me to her past, and I was losing. I realized I had given her too much power over me, and she had grown bold enough to humiliate me in my own house. The next morning, I acted normal. I made breakfast, spoke softly, and smiled when she mentioned she might meet her ex again. Inside, though, a fire was burning. I decided I wouldn't confront her with anger. I wouldn't beg her to stay. Instead, I would teach her a lesson she'd never forget. Over the next week, I changed my routine. I stopped waiting for her texts, stopped asking about her plans. Instead, I started going out more, spending time at the gym, reconnecting with friends I had ignored for years. She noticed, of course. One evening, she asked why I wasn't home when she called. I just shrugged and said, "I had better things to do." Her smirk began to fade as the days passed. She started checking my phone, pretending it was casual. Once, I caught her staring at me while I dressed for a dinner with colleagues. "Who's going to be there?" she asked, her voice sharper than usual. I smiled politely. "Does it matter? You don't seem to care what I do." By the second week, she grew restless. She canceled her meetups with her ex and instead tried to make plans with me. But I was no longer eager. I didn't refuse her, but I didn't chase her either. The balance had shifted, and she felt it. That's when I put my plan into motion. Our wedding anniversary was coming up, and she had been bragging to her friends about how I always spoiled her with gifts and dinners. This time, I told her I had planned a special surprise dinner at an upscale restaurant. She was excited, glowing like a bride again, telling everyone to expect pictures of the night. On the evening of our anniversary, she dressed up beautifully, expecting romance. I drove her to the restaurant, but when we walked in, she froze. Sitting at the reserved table were her closest friends, her parents, and even her ex, whom I had personally invited. Confusion spread across her face, but before she could speak, I stood up and raised my glass. "Everyone," I announced, my voice steady, "thank you for coming. Tonight is not just about celebrating our marriage. It's about honesty." My wife once laughed in my face and said maybe I wasn't enough. She thought humiliating me was funny. But I wanted all of you here so she can explain why she still meets her ex and mocks her husband's love. The room fell into shocked silence. Her face turned pale, her eyes wide. She stammered, denying, but the whispers had already started. Her parents looked horrified, her friends stared at her with disgust, and even her ex shifted uncomfortably. I didn't let her recover. I pulled out a folder with the divorce papers I had prepared and placed them in front of her. "You're right," I said coldly. "I'm not enough. Not for someone like you. But I will be more than enough for someone who values loyalty and respect. Tonight is the last time you laugh at me." She broke down crying, begging me not to end things like this, but her tears were useless now. Everyone had seen her true face, and the humiliation she once enjoyed at my expense now belonged solely to her. I walked out of that restaurant free, leaving her surrounded by the ruins of her own pride. For the first time in a long time, I felt powerful again. She had laughed at me once, but now the world was laughing at her. And that was my revenge, Not anger, not violence, but stripping away the mask she wore and showing everyone the cruel woman she had become.